All right, we are back with another Advanced Tactics. I've taken a little break from it. 3.4 was a lot of changes, and so I didn't want to continue to do my Advanced Tactics. I really wanted to take some time, do some playtesting for 3.4, kind of look at it. And I'm going to go into this and sort of been tweaking some of my armies with 3.4 to sort of make them work a little better. So let's get into Watch Brothers here. This is our fourth set on these Battle Brothers list. I want to get through the Battle Brothers, get to Dark Elf Raiders, and get to the Havoc Brothers. That I'm hoping by the end of the year to basically have a lot of the factions reworked. I'm working not only just myself, but I'm working with a few other creators to sort of get those custom armies where they need to be. And we have some additional things planned where it isn't just me sort of doing this, but so there's stuff coming in the works for competitive play and custom. There's a lot of stuff in the works, but for now, I'm just trying to get these custom armies out as a first draft state, get some games in with them, and sort of go from there. All right, but before we get into that, hey, just do the like, subscribe, and comment stuff. I really appreciate everyone's support, and let's just get into this. So, I did change so my assumptions are the same. I'm always talking about competing against official, or competitively balanced lists. I always like to use the orcs. I think the orcs are a great sort of standard that I think about. Orcs and Blessed Sisters, I think, are two really good lists that I think are just super solid. And like whenever I'm building these armies, I'm always thinking about those as my measuring stick. I'm always thinking about something around a 5 or 6 game GT. That's like this is what a lot of standard GTs do, and generally around 3,000 points. That would be something that you would run over like a 2-day event. I think 3,000. I think somewhere between 2,500 to 3,000 is where the eventual competitive meta will settle. I think as people start playing the game more, they're going to find that 2,000 is just not quite, I think, where the game needs to be. And I'm also just talking about allies. So let's just get into this. I've changed my criteria. So I've played some games, really dug into things, and I have tweaked some criteria, and I'll go into it. Now, some of it's the same, but some of it is different. So the first of all, of course, flexibility and one strong playstyle. I still think that raw efficiency is still a really important thing. Avoiding pistol or hybrid taxes. I think spells actually got a buff in 3.4, so having a good spell list is actually, I think, a little more important, especially with those buffed level 3s. And I know the points may have adjusted and changed on those, but a good spell list is still very important. Impactful elites and cheap chaff, both of those are still pretty core parts to the game. And then I have multiple meaningful upgrades, and what I've done is I've actually broken out the upgrades that I think an army really needs to have to be competitive. The first of which is Advanced Tactics. Actually got a little bit of a buff, got dropped down to 5 points. 45 points now I still think is terrific. I thought it was great at 50 points. It's still even better at 45. So I think Advanced Tactics is just something that every army needs. It's just so useful. And then AP4, I think it's pretty telling that AP4 is still, even though it got nerfed by having some point increases, AP4 is still super good. And that shows you that prior to 3.4, just really how good AP4 was. So it's not as good as it used to be, still very good. I think Caster 3 is now actually more important in 3.4 with those level 3 spells that got buffed. It's so important that you have a Caster 3 that on the first turn in a 4-turn game that you're able to cast at level 3 spells. I think it's vital. The other thing I'm putting on the list now is Regeneration. Regeneration got an indirect buff with Rending and with Poison going up in points. That basically means that Regeneration has got a buff, and I think that we're going to start seeing more Regeneration. I think that I think it's a really powerful ability now that people are really paying a lot more points for not just Rending, but Poison got really increased in points, and I'm not against it. I just think that it makes Regen really powerful. I think Scout and Ambush continue to be really powerful abilities. Both of them got nerfed and buffed. So one of the things that I think Scout and Ambush are actually more important to put in your army now is it's a lot more of a consistent counter your opponents. You know, because they've changed the rules, and I love this change, where now it's such a tactical change. Now the scout and ambush placement isn't randomized. Whoever is going first has to commit their first scout and ambush unit, and then that gives the person going second actually an ability to counter it. I don't know. Previously, I'd tell you this is actually a really great change, and I don't think people realize how good this change is. It used to be that if you went second and you basically won the roll-off to place your ambushers first, you were really sort of screwed, because wherever you place them, your opponent could counter them and then just kill your ambushers. So this is actually a really good change to ambush, especially ambush, but also scout as well, to have that counterplay there. But it also means that you really want to have scout and ambush in your army. The other thing that I'm sliding up here and I've added on here, it's been on my radar, I think, especially with ambush becoming more important. I think that warning cry is a necessary skill. I think that if you have it in these armies, warning cry is just such a good ability, especially for, it's almost a single model. Let's just talk about the Burrower. The Alien Hives is sort of the army to beat right now, and one of their key ways to win is that Burrower. That Burrower is just going to do so much work. Warning Cry may not be able to mitigate ambushers to an extent, but it will negate the Burrower, and it'll also negate some of the Robot Legion's tunneling. They have some of these units that have tunneling as well. So I think bringing two models or two groups, units preferably, with Warning Cry, the ability to sort of protect your army from just having a Burrower appear right behind you, it's actually a really big deal. Warning Cry, I think, should just be mandatory in every list. So those are the really upgrades that I think are almost mandatory in armies now for them to sort of compete. Finally, just undead or having some sort of morale mitigation, whether that's buffing morale, fearless, good quality, or just being undead. That's still just very important. So this is sort of my new criteria, and the criteria may change. I'm going to continue to play 3.4. I'm eventually going to come up with a tier list. I'm not ready to do it yet. I really need to get in more reps with the armies before I can really, I don't like to provide a tier list unless I've really just, put myself through the paces. So with that, let's look at Watch Brothers and the criteria. Watch Brothers are an F tier army. They're one of the worst armies in the game. I don't think they're even a playable army, just with their unit size being only 3. It's really just not a playable army. They don't really have any flexibility. They don't have any strong playstyle. They're not efficient at all. I think one of the really crushing things in this army is bringing that veteran upgrade for everyone. It's a crushing tax on the army. I think it's unplayable basically at its current state. They do have a good spell list, which is the general Battle Brothers spell list. I don't think they even have some impactful elites. Their elites, again, being that 3-man base, it's really just the destroyers, maybe the bikers that are sort of impactful. But they just don't have what they really need because of a lot of their base squads are bases of 3. They certainly don't have cheap chaff. As far as the upgrades go, they do have some good upgrades. They have advanced tactics, the AP4, Caster 3. They have a lot of them except Warning Cry, and Warning Cry I think is a big one. And they don't, so I would say they have some morale mitigation, but because of such of the small squads, it's hard to give them that. But I guess I would say that they do have some morale mitigation. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cover a custom army. You can look at the list as well. I'm going to cover a custom army, and the things I want to, again, talk about. I want to talk about what makes this army distinct from other Battle Brothers factions. I want to obviously make the units more efficient, and I'm generally going to be removing that veteran upgrade, and there's a good reason for that. The veteran upgrade is just not efficient. It's a little broken, basically. There's been some discussion on the points with the calculator. Basically, this can't be an optional upgrade. It's got to be mandatory. So what I've done, just with them and all my armors, I've actually just removed that upgrade altogether. I think it's not really fully functional. I don't think it's needed, especially not on Battle Brothers. I don't think the upgrade is needed, and so I've actually removed it from all my custom armies, and I'm removing it from Watch Brothers as well. I just think that I don't want to try to deal with an upgrade that has just problems with it. And then we'll go through a competitive list. All right, so let's look at my custom army. We'll talk about some of the things I'm doing with it. All right, so this is the Watch Brothers competitive redesign here. It is, so the first thing I think that Watch Brothers, the way that this army, I imagine it to function is, it's going to be very much a lot like Sisters. It's going to be really sort of that mid-range army. It wants to stay around 6 to 12 inches. You have to get really close because you want to get that purge. Unlike Blessed Sisters, though, you don't have the chaff to mitigate that. So I really wanted to have some spells to really help Watch Brothers manage that range. So first thing, I've just got a level 1 defense spell. The other thing I think is probably going to be the most important spell to the army is just a Hinder Paths, and this is a giving 2 units within 18 -2, but especially that -4. That's actually going to be really important. I think this is going to be the most important spell in Watch Brothers, and I think almost for Watch Brothers, really, casters are almost required because you have to be able to cast this spell on your opponents, shoot them at that 9 to 12 inch range, and then they can't charge you. Now, obviously, fast changes that, but still, I mean, you know, hopefully you don't face an all-fast army. The other thing I did add them, I added a Far Strike. This is a very powerful ability. 2 units within 12 getting +2 AP when they shoot. You know, I mean, this is a shooting army. So I think having an ability to really just give them some really powerful shooting as well is going to be really, really good. I think their spells are going to, like I said, I think this is an army. I did want this army to function very similarly to the 40k version, which basically doesn't have scouts. You know, Deathwatch, their equivalent, doesn't have scouts. So we'll talk about how I sort of manage that. I will say this army redesign could be on the weaker side, and I may need to buff it up. So, like Watch Brothers is a really terrible army right now. So I buffed it, but it probably may need some more buffing, and we'll sort of see. I'll have to play it out, but this is where I'm going with it. So first of all, we've got the Watch Destroyer. He's running a lot with the standard ones. I've given him, I think the special ammo is actually really good to give him. It's expensive, but what you are trying to do with this army is that you're going to have a small units, and you're going to see I've removed all the veteran, and even with removing all the veteran, you're still going to have a small unit count. But whenever you activate, you have your units count. I think special ammo can really do that. Rending and ignores cover. You've got that removal of the regen. Really good spell. Also, just the Master Destroyer is armed up very similarly as well. Master Brother again. Their special thing is this special ammo that they've added. He's armed very similarly to other Battle Brothers champions. Here, the Watch Mage Destroyer again. As I've been doing, he starts out with a caster 2, caster +1 in resistance. He starts out with an energy sword, but he can go to an energy staff, a storm rifle, and go to a storm assault shotgun. This is what I've been doing for all my destroyers, giving them a short range option if they did want to run the ambush. So that's just the Watch Destroyer. The Watch Mage Brother is armed very similarly, resistance and up to a caster 3. He can make a jetpack. Again, limiting some of his abilities so he can only really get an energy sword or a heavy pistol. So I like that idea of differentiating a caster. In other words, making casters, you know, not just having these uber characters, but casters are sort of their own thing. That's my thought there. They're very similar to my other Battle Brothers. So let's get into the core units, which are sort of the meat of this change. One thing I've done is I've kept the Command and Vanguard Brothers at 3. I think the Command Brothers are actually just added on. Now, I've removed all the veteran upgrades. It's just way too expensive. I don't think it's needed, and it just isn't going to work. I think, again, I think the upgrade, until they fix it, it's not going to be in all the armies, and I don't think it should. So Command Brothers, the big thing that Command and Vanguard Brothers do, these are these 3-man squads, which are just very versatile. So when we go into them, first of all, they're very versatile. You can give anyone, they're 3-man squads, so you can give them the rending claws. The other thing is that you can actually upgrade this unit with heavy weapons, mid-range weapons. So the idea is that these two smaller squads are going to be very, you can arm them all with energy fists. You can give all the mods as well. You can also give them all shield wall and regeneration. So these are smaller squads, but they have. The other thing is that they can actually get one of these upgrades to a combined squad. Could get 2. Advanced Tactics and Company Medic, I think, are really good. I want Watch Brothers to still feel very elite. And so the Watch Command Brothers, I think, a very versatile squad. Sort of their hand-to-hand equivalent is these Vanguard Brothers. So you basically you're only stuck with arming pistols, but you can get jump packs on these guys. Also, they are the Vanguard squad that actually get the Warning Cry. The Warning Cry is just something I'm putting on all armies now. Again, just giving them a lot of upgrade opportunities. These are going to sort of function like these elite Death Watch of them. So just very maneuverable, so these two squads are sort of at the base. Then I've actually just, Watch Brothers now are just a 5-man squad. I think that's really important. You just need to, you need to just give these Watch Brothers 5 and 10-man squads. They have to have it. This army has to function. So they're armed very similarly to what other Battle Brothers. They get a close combat weapon upgrade. They can go up to a pistol, and then they've got actually either a specialty weapon or a heavy weapon. They can get medical training, and actually they can also get shield wall as well. So that's just your standard Watch Brothers. Assault Brothers are very similarly where they're just your standard Assault Brothers. They're armed, like I said, they can get ambush, they can have a flame or a fusion, and they can get some hand-to-hand upgrades as well. Yeah, the Watch Brothers and the Assault Brothers, that's just giving a little more meat into the army. The Watch Destroyers are actually set up very similarly to what I've did with other destroyers. I've given them an assault shotgun that's sort of to help out with the hybrid attacks. That's going to synergize a little better with ambush. So basically, they can get a shield wall and an energy, a good weapon, and go ambush, or they can go for the assault shotgun and have a little bit of short range shooting, or they can just go for the storm rifle and then not do ambush and be more of a longer range shooting squad. They get a healing aura as well. So yeah, you can sort of see here my Command Brothers are where I get a lot of my buffs as well. The Watch Bikers as well, these are armed very similarly to other Battle Brothers. You can check those out, giving them a shotgun option, giving them both a long range and a mid range option for these guys here. So this is very similarly where I think the biggest thing I'm doing is actually just giving these guys a 12-inch weapon. Fast, works very well. Now, one thing you're going to note in this Watch Brother army, I don't have scouts. And maybe I add them in, but I want this army to sort of not be sort of what Death Watch are and not have scouts. They're all just a quality 3 army. The Watch support bike is very similar, right? I mean, it's all a little more expensive, especially when everything has Purge. This is an army that's going to live and die based on that 6 to 12-inch range, getting in that Purge range, shooting, and then really just kind of tearing up the opponent at that range, but really being able to manage that range. The attack speeder is, just armed very similarly. I've done similar upgrades where I've given the heavy minigun just an extra AP. I think people want their assault cannons to feel a lot more, important. The Watch exosuit as well, armed very similarly. I'm not going to spend too much time on the vehicles. I think that they're armed very similarly. They've got the Purge that makes them a little more expensive. The Attack Walker, again, I'm probably going to drop this veteran. I forgot to do that. I'll be dropping this veteran walker. I don't want that upgrade on anything. It's just too problematic. The Watch APC and the Watch Attack APC, these are just armed like their other Battle Brothers equivalents. So I'm not going to spend too much time on them. Same thing with the Drop Pod and the Watch Battle Tank. The big thing is that all these vehicles are more expensive, but they got that Purge. So this army really does want to try to get in there and leverage that Purge. The Watch Heavy Tank, I've done this before where I've pulled out the transport, and I've also, in these tanks, I've beefed up a little bit of the shooting so that these guys can really meet that. The Death Star gunship has stayed very similarly. Just, an ambush, it's very similar to what I've been doing to other. I'm not going to spend too much time on it. So the big thing with this army, it's a little more elite. Now, one thing I may do is I may actually add some quality 3 scouts in the future. I don't want them quality 4, and so I may do that. Is if this army is still feeling a little weak, I may add some quality 3 but Def 4 scouts. So let's look at a competitive army and kind of go from there. Okay, so let's look at now this is a little spicy, but this is my thought. I want this army to actually, I think a way that this army could sort of counter some pretty heavy ambush play is by basically having so few drops that anyone who tries to ambush them, they're going to get the first drop on those ambushers. So that's one thing I'm thinking about this army, is I want to have very few drops. So I do have a mage, Master Brother. He's got the Caster 3 and the Resistance. He's just armed pretty light with an Assault Heavy Pistol and Energy Staff. 135, but he's also kind of tanky. He's going to be with those Watch Command Brothers. And I think these Watch Command Brothers are sort of, they are expensive, 475. They have 6 storm rifles, so there's a lot of shooting. They both also have an advanced tactics and a company medic. That's going to hand out regen to one of the squads. This is going to be sort of one of those really important squads that are going to they're going to be providing long-range firepower, but they're also going to be providing a lot of buffs as well. So with the mage, really going to be this is going to be a big finesse army. I think one of the most important parts of the army is going to have these 2 90-point Watch Vanguard Brothers, and both of them have Warning Cry. So this Warning Cry on these 2 3-man squads, first of all, these guys would be chaff, but they're actually going to do pretty good. They would actually win against most chaff, just, charging in with 6 heavy close combat weapon attacks. The Warning Cries can be very pivotal to this unit, being able to stop burrowers and such from just dropping their back line. We've then got a Watch Destroyer unit. They've got a healing aura, so they're going to have regen, and they've got these assault shotguns. I've upgraded them with the ambush. So this is going to sort of be my own ambushing, and they're coming in with those energy hammers. So just a lot of AP4. This is a squad that maybe I don't even drop them in ambush. It's a nice little squad that's going to be my hand-to-hand units, but also being pretty protected. So pretty spicy part of the army. This is very elite, and maybe this is too much. I'm running some Watch Brother Bikers. So I actually just have them with their heavy rifles. So this is a 24-inch range. They're going to be putting out generally about 18 heavy rifle shots a turn. If they get within 12, they're going to be exploding on 6s. They have fast, so with such an elite army, they're going to be able to go where they need to go. They've got some decent hand-to-hand, but these guys really want to just be moving around the battlefield, grabbing objectives, and then just picking off things. Maybe I run a Vanguard squad with them so they don't get ambushed. I mean, there's a lot of things I can do. But I do like these Watch Brother Bikers. Then, actually, I'm running a heavy exosuit. I think this thing is a little spicy. I've got it with the fusion rifle. He's got a heavy rifle as well. But this is actually a double-tapping fusion rifle that within 12 inches, this is going to explode. This could easily get 9. This could easily get 3 AP4, deadly 3 shots onto something. So this exosuit's, I've got a lot of stuff that I'm going to be dealing with, heavier stuff. So yeah, I think this exosuit's pretty good. And then I'm actually bringing in a tank. I think this tank could do pretty good. Twin laser cannon, a hunter missile, and the storm rifle. This is going to be in the back line, 36 inches away. This is something that I'll probably be trying to cast my +2 AP on. So, AP 5 and AP 3 and 4 shots going on to stuff. I think this is primarily armed to kill bigger stuff with the twin lass and the twin auto. A lot of high AP deadly stuff. I've got the hunter killer. So I've definitely got a lot in the army here to deal with, your burrowers, your hive lords. Those are just things that you're going to have to deal with. I'm just going to show the spells again. Again, the big thing of that, I've actually thought about doubling up the caster, but I didn't. I think a different version of this army, I would bring 2 casters, just because I think Hinder Paths and the Far Side are so important that I actually am considering just doubling up on the caster in this unit, but I didn't. But this is going to be so important to this army. Getting this level 2 spell off on your opponent's stuff, That way you can walk up within 12, shoot him, and then he can't charge you. So I think that's going to be really interesting to put on. And then I think also the Far Strike, that's going to do a lot of damage. You know, I think casting this on the tank, casting this on the command squad, so that you turn all those AP 1s and 2s into 3s and 4s. So let me know what you think. Hey, thanks so much for watching. I'd love to get feedback on this. I think this is an army that I still could see some tweaking needing to be needs to be added on. Anyway, like, subscribe, and comment. Hey, send me your custom armies if you want a review on them. Hey, thanks so much.